Vamana and begged alms from the king in the form of 3 steps of land. With 2 steps, Lord Vamana covered all 3 planetary systems and pierced the covering of the universe with the toes of his left foot. A few drops of water from the causal ocean leaked through this hole and fell on the head of Lord Shiva, where they remained for 1,000 millenniums. These drops of water are the sacred Ganges River. It first flows onto the heavenly planets, which are located on the soles of Lord Vishnu's feet. The Ganges River is known by many names, such as the Bhagirathi and the Jahnavi. It purifies Dhruvaloka and the planets of the 7 sages, because both Dhruva and the sages have no other desire than to serve the Lord's lotus feet. The Ganges River, emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, inundates the heavenly planets, especially the moon, and then flows through Brahmapuri atop Mount Meru. Here the river divides into 4 branches, known as Sita, Alakananda, Chakshu, and Bhadra, which then flow down to the ocean of salt water. The branch known as Sita flows through Shekhara Parvat and Gandhamadana Parvat, and then flows down to Bhadrashva Varsha, where it mixes with the ocean of salt water in the west. The Chakshu branch flows through Malyavan Giri, and after reaching Ketumala Varsha, mixes with the ocean of salt water in the west. The branch known as Bhadra flows onto Mount Meru, Mount Kumuda, and the Nila, Sveta, and Shringavan mountains before it reaches Kurudesh, where it flows into the ocean of salt water in the north. The Alakanand branch flows through Brahmalaya, crosses over many mountains, including Hemakuta and Himakuta, and then reaches Bharatvarsha, where it flows into the southern side of the ocean of salt water. Many other rivers and their branches flow through the 9 Varshas. The tract of land known as Bharatvarsha is the field of activities, and the other 8 Varshas are for persons who are meant to enjoy heavenly comfort. In each of these 8 beautiful provinces, the celestial denizens enjoy various standards of material comfort and pleasure. A different incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead distributes his mercy in each of the 9 Varshas of Jambudvip. In the Ilavrita Varsha, Lord Shiva is the only male. There he lives with his wife, Bhavani, who is attended by many maid servants. If any other male enters that province, Bhavani curses him to become a woman. Lord Shiva worships Lord Sankarshan by offering various prayers, one of which is as follows. Quote, "My dear Lord, please liberate all your devotees from material life and bind all the non-devotees to the material world. Without your mercy, no one can be released from the bondage of material existence." That's the conclusion of the summary of the chapter. Now we'll begin with the first text. This continues, Sukadeva is continued, he's, for some reason, I don't know why Sukadev sometimes speaks in verse and sometimes he speaks in prose. This chapter is half and half. I was looking through, I said, okay, because the first maybe 8, 9 verses, they're all in prose. But when he begins to, he begins to narrate Shiva's prayers, and it goes back into verse. But this is in prose, and so because it's in prose, it's very difficult for all of us to recite it. But what I'll do is I'll just break it up a little bit. We can each repeat, say part of it, we can repeat it, but we'll just do it one time. Tatra Bhagavata Sakshad Yagya Lingasya Vishnur Vikramato Vamapadan Gushta. Now this is one of these, you can see in the Devanagari, the word just goes like this. But we'll split it up. Naka Nirbhi Nordvanda Kadaha Viva Reinanta Pravishta Ya Bhaya Bhaya Jaladhara Tachcharana Pankajane Vajanaruna Pankajavena Vajanaruna. Kinjalo Paranjita Kila Jagad Agha Malapahopas. This is don't bother. Malapahopaspashanana mala. Okay, whatever. You can do that. Sakshad Bhagavat Paditi Anupalakshita Vacho Abidiyamanati Mahata Kalena Yuga Sahasropalakshanena Devo Mudhani Avatara Yattad Vishnupadam Mahuhu. Synonyms. Sri Sukha Uvacha. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Tatra, at that time, Bhagavataha, of the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sakshat, directly. Jagyalingasya, the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices. Vishnu, of Lord Vishnu. Vikramataha, while taking his second step. Vamapada, of his left leg. Angushta, of the big toe. Naka, by the nail. Nirbhina, pierced. Urdhva, upper. Anda Kataha, the covering of the universe, consisting of 7 layers, earth, water, fire, etc. Vivarena, through the whole. Antapravishta, having entered the universe. Ya, which? Bhaya Jaladhara, the flow of water from the causal ocean outside the universe. tat of him, charana pankaja of the lotus feet, of an ajana by the washing, aruna kinjalka by reddish powder, uparanjita being colored, akila jagat of the whole world, agamala the sinful activities, apaha destroys, upashparshana the touching of which, amala completely pure, sakshat directly, bhagavat padi emanating from the lotus feet to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Iti, thus, anupalakshita, described, vachaha, by the name, abhidiyamana, being called, ati mahata kalena, after a long time, yuga sahasra upalakshanena, consisting of 1,000 millenniums, divaha of the sky, murdani on the head, Dhruvaloka, avatatara descended, yat which, tat that, Vishnupadam the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, ahu they call. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, appeared as Vamanadeva in the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj. Then he extended his left foot to the end of the universe and pierced a hole in its covering with the nail of his big toe. Through the hole, the pure water of the causal ocean entered this universe as the Ganges River. Having washed the lotus feet of the Lord, which are covered with reddish powder, the water of the Ganges acquired a very beautiful pink color. Every living being can immediately purify his mind of material contamination by touching the transcendental water of the Ganges, yet its waters remain ever pure. Because the Ganges directly touches the lotus feet of the Lord before descending within this universe, she is known as Vishnu Padi. Later she received other names like Jahnavi and Bhagirati. After 1,000 millenniums, the water of the Ganges descended on Dhruvaloka, the topmost planet in this universe. Therefore all learned sages and scholars proclaim Dhruvaloka to be Vishnu Pada, situated on Lord Vishnu's lotus feet. Purport. In this verse, Sukadeva Goswami describes the glories of the Ganges River. The water of the Ganges is called Patita Pavani, the deliverer of all sinful living beings. It is a proven fact that a person who regularly bathes in the Ganges is purified, both externally and internally. Externally, his body becomes immune to all kinds of disease. And internally, he gradually develops a devotional attitude toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Throughout India, many thousands of people live on the banks of the Ganges, and by regularly bathing in her waters, they are undoubtedly being purified, both spiritually and materially. Many sages, including Sankaracharya, have composed prayers in praise of the Ganges. And the land of India itself has become glorious because such rivers as the Ganges, Jamuna, Godavari, Kaveri, Krishna, and Narmada flow there. Anyone living on the land adjacent to these rivers is naturally advanced in spiritual consciousness. Srila Madhvacharya says, Virahe vamapadam tu tadanyeshu tu dakshinam padam kalpeshu bhagavan ujahara jivikramaha. Standing on his right foot and extending his left to the edge of the universe, Lord Vamana became known as Trivikrama, the incarnation who performed 3 heroic deeds. So the Ganges River, one of the stories of her origin is being described here. I was researching, and later there's another story that when Trivikram, when Vamanadev stretches his foot, then Brahma washes his foot, his kamandalu, and that becomes the Ganges River. And then Prabhupada says there's a third way, I can't remember what that is, that the Ganges comes. And so, and then he said they're all 3 together they're all taken together as being the origin of the Ganges. But the one that is being described here is perhaps the one that we're most familiar with, that when Vamanadev stretches his second foot. So he began with his right foot, and now he takes his left foot and stretches. It goes beyond any possibility of even perceiving. I suppose that Bali Maharaj could see this, that this Vamana is just expanded. It's hard to even imagine. But Vamana's foot, the nail of his foot, pierces the covering of our universe. And then the water that our universe is, all these universes, there's this space, this place called the causal ocean, Karana, that Krishna expands himself. He takes the form of Mahavishnu, and he lies down in this ocean, and he sleeps, and he breathes. And when he breathes out, from the pores, he has pores on his skin. Universes come out. And then as he breathes in, they all come back into his body. And the ocean that he lies in, the Karna ocean, is described as the causal ocean. Cause. We are only familiar with cause and effect. Our life is conditioned, our consciousness is completely conditioned to think of things in terms of cause and effect. This is the plane of karma. Karma is, there's some cause, there's some effect, which leads to another cause, which leads to another effect, and the cycle of cause and effect and cause, and it just keeps going around and around and around. And the origin of this cycle of karma is this causal ocean. And Krishna, he activates it. He brings it into substance by just breathing. Just breathing. And as he breathes out, these universes manifest, and in each universe he then enters in. And again he lies down on his own ocean, the Garbhodaksha, the Garbha ocean. And there he lies down, and from him a lotus flower sprouts, and on top of this flower, the first created being, Brahma, comes. And in the heart of Brahma, Krishna is also entered in. The Chirodakshaya Vishnu. He has his own ocean of milk that he lies in as well. The Chirodakshaya. So all of this is going on far beyond our ability to even comprehend or what to speak of, to actually see. But here we get to know about how from that incredible arrangement, the Ganges comes into our world. And she comes down, first as it described here, she comes down, I don't, it's described in the summary, but I don't think it's actually in the verses, where it says, a few drops of water from the causal ocean leaked through the hole and fell on the head of Lord Shiva, where they remained for 1,000 millenniums. It says in the verse, it talks about Ati Mahata Kalena, after a long time, Yuga Sahasra Upalakshanena, consisting of 1,000 millenniums. So that time period is referred to, but the Shiva's role has not been described in the verse. But Srila Prabhupada is bringing our attention that the Ganges first gets caught in the locks of. Excuse me, Mataji, when I saw I was reminded of Lord Shiva catching the, his hair was like this up here, and he caught the Ganges. And then there's so many other stories about how Bhagirath begs for the Ganges to come down, but the one reason why the Lord Shiva is catching the Ganges, because only he can do so. He only has the power to receive this powerful water of the causal ocean that's coming in. But the main point being made here is that this water is is sanctified by the touch of the lotus feet of Krishna, of Vishnu. Therefore, it's given the name Vishnupadi. Prabhupada describes that later she received other names, like Jahnavi, Bhagirati, Ganges itself. These names come later. The name Bhagirathi we know comes because Bhagirath, the king Bhagirath, he begs and he pleases the Ganga, and she agrees to come down to earth. Prior to this, she's, as described here, she's flowing and anointing and blessing all the heavenly realms. And very curiously, we hear about the various varshas that are somewhere, I think later on, Prabhupada describes that there's 3 heavenly realms. There's the Svarga, there's the upper heavenly realms, there are the earthly heavenly realms, and there's the subterranean heavenly realms, the lower heavenly realms. And they're all just places of pleasure. I think it's later here in this chapter, I'm not sure where, I think it's in this chapter, that is described that in these realms, the residents, they have beautiful consorts, their husbands and wives, and they're all, enjoying, and we don't have to get into all the details, but everything that we would, if we were aspiring for material pleasure in this world, everything that we aspire for materially in this world is there without any difficulty. Here, whenever we try to get pleasure out of this world, whatever form it is, it always ends up with some pain. There's some trouble. Sex life produces children, and children can be a source of great happiness, but also a great difficulty. And for the women, giving birth is not at all pleasurable. But it can be from a certain perspective. I mean, there's a certain loving experience, but the physical experience is not comfortable. But in the heavenly worlds, they don't have this problem. But they do die. It doesn't last. But the Ganges comes down. First, Bhagirath brings the Ganges down. And here Prabhupada describes that the Ganges is known as Jahnavi. Now, here's a good test for the Navadi Parikrama Wallas. How many of you remember why Ganges is called Jahnavi? No? It's a wonderful story. So, as we all know, the Ganges flows through Navadvip. And I often think that, my wife and I, we live in Mayapur. And unlike Vrindavan, where you have quite a number of ancient establishments that you can feel, all the temples that Vajranabha established, the deities that were established, they're still there. Haridev and Govindaji, and they're there. Mayapur, it all went. Navadvip, the Ganges herself, she flooded, she moved about. We were talking about it, I think yesterday, we were talking about how the Ganges would move. So at one point, she moved and covered all the places of Mahaprabhu's birth, and all these places, they were just flooded and covered with water. They were lost. And the idea came that it's on this side, the western side of the Ganges. That's something I've never really delved into. How did that concept develop? We know that Mahaprabhu's movement, within a few hundred years only, began to, fall apart, you can say, because there was what Bhaktivinoda Thakur coined as Apa Sampradayas. Different followers of Lord Chaitanya began to adopt ideas and concepts about the teachings of Lord Chaitanya that were deviating from the pure teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The owl, baul, kartabhaja, there's a whole list that Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes. And my thought is, and it would be a good topic to research, is that during that time when these deviations were arising in the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the concept, the understanding of the actual place of Mayapur was, because of the movement of the Ganges along with that, it all got lost. But I was thinking, but in Vrindavan, yes, things got covered up also, but still Govardhan Hill is still there. These different deities are there. But for us in Mayapur, there's just one thing that we know was there. And that we know that Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he was there. And that's the Ganges. We know that he bathed in that same Ganges River every day. We know that. And so going to the Ganges for us in Mayapur is just it's an intimate way to connect with Gauranga. So the Ganges is there during the time of Mahaprabhu, but it was there since Bhagirath's time. And because of all these qualities that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam regarding the Ganges, many sages would make their hermitage there. And one of them was Janu Muni. And actually, I should correct myself, because Janu Muni had his hermitage there before the Ganges came. He had his hermitage, he perhaps understood the nature of this Navadvip place, but he had his hermitage there, his ashram. So he had his daily activities of meditation and so on, and he was seated in meditation, and he had his achman just in front of him, and his paraphernalia, and he was sitting there meditating. And now Bhagirath comes, and the Ganges is forcefully coming and knocks over the Achman cup of Janu. Janu looks, who's done this? And sees this river. Gets a bit upset because his Achman cup has been disturbed. And he reaches out and he takes the river, comes down to the palm of his hand, and he drinks the entire Ganges. And Bhagirath turns back and says, "Where's the Ganges? Where is it gone?" And he sees Janu sitting there. Very smug, I guess. I've corrected this offense. But now Bhagirath is in trouble. His whole mission is to rescue his ancestors. So he begs Janu, please release the Ganges. And after some time, Janu agrees. And where does the Ganges come from? The Ganges emerges from the thigh of Janu. And thus, being born of Janu, she becomes Jahnavi. So, Jahnavi Tatavane. Yes. On the Tata, we sing just the Jayarada Madhava, Jamuna Tiravana. So Tatavana, the banks of the forest on the banks of the Jahnavi river. Mahaprabhu engaged in his pastimes. And we have the wondrous arti. There is another incident after, this is long ago, but more, you could say more recently, Bhaktivinoda Thakur doesn't give really timing for these things. That there's a place near Janu's ashram, which is in Janu Dweep, but before we reach Janu Dweep in our parikrama of Navadweep, we go to Ritu Dweep, and in Ritu Dweep is a place called Samudragar. And this is where Samudra, now Samudra means the ocean. So Samudra, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes how the Samudra and the Ganga, they're meeting in this place. Perhaps because it could be, I'm not totally, I think this is actually a fact. You see, you may know, I don't know if it wouldn't be here, of course, but rivers that flow into the ocean, the ocean itself, when the ocean tides come, then the tide of that ocean moves up the river. In Calcutta, you find that when the high tide, it's long ways away from the ocean, but when there's high tide, you can see that the river is actually moving. It's slowed down, and I think it even sometimes reverses its course because of the tide of the ocean. And this, we'll have to check this out, but I believe that Samudragar is kind of the final reach of the Indian Ocean coming up the Ganges. So Samudra is there, and the Ganges is speaking and lamenting. It says, and praising, saying, Samudra, you are so fortunate. You're so fortunate. Gauranga Mahaprabhu is here, and he's bathing in my waters, but he's going to leave. He's going to go, and he's going to reside on your bank in Puri. And he'll be taking bath every day with you, and I'll be left here. And Samudra said, no, this is not true. Gauranga will never leave Navadvip. He may appear to have, but he will always be here. So that conversation is there in the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Prabhupada makes the point here about purification from the Ganges. And in many places, Prabhupada stresses how the Ganges water is pure. And here he says, it's a proven fact. Now, he talks about immunity from all illness by bathing in the Ganges. And I was thinking about that this morning, and I was saying, And then I thought, I don't bathe every day, okay, so that's one thing. But even more than that, I don't have the faith. There's a certain element, when the healing power, the material healing power, I should say, because the The spiritual healing power of the Ganges is there regardless. Hare Krishna. Regardless of one's faith. In fact, there are, I don't remember the details, but in one Purana, it describes a number of entities who achieve liberation just falling into, like a rat or a spider or something like that. And they fall in the Ganges and boom, they emerge. It may not happen every time, but it does. That's one thing that Prabhupada does say. I need to find the reference. In the Nectar of Devotion, he talks about how we have to understand some of these statements that seem like, like this one. That we said, well, wait a minute, He says, well, we should take these as true, but not necessarily that they happen every time, but because they do happen, therefore it's not an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration because it does happen. So, and later in another purport, Prabhupada talks about, I know one man. He talks about, I know one gentleman in Calcutta who never took any medicine. If he got sick, he just took Ganges water and he was always cured. So this is, Prabhupada uses these examples. This is, for him, this is proof of the material power. But there's further evidence, actual science, there's speculations about it. We know this to be a fact. Living in Mayapur, we've done it. We've taken the water of the Ganges, which is all, turbid and so on. We've tested it, when it's fresh out of the Ganges. It's not. There is something there, but if you let it sit for 8 days, completely pure. No bacteria, no nothing. And this has been studied. There's some speculation that there's some silver, colloidal silver or something that comes from it's the glaciers or whatever, and does it. But it's a fact that the Ganges water doesn't stagnate when it sits for some time. But more importantly is its purifying effect. How the water of the Ganga washes us, cleanses us, shelters us, and gives us, prompts our devotion, our bhakti. So I'm going to end our class a little earlier because we have to take a little breakfast and get to the train. I want to make sure that we have enough time to get on with all our luggage. So I want to end, but with just final thoughts about the glories of Ma Ganga. How kind she is to us. In Mayapur, we raised our children in Mayapur. And when it got hot, it was today too. If you go there in April and especially March, April, May, then around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when you'll see there's like go to the Ganga. And the Ganga receives us. And we play. We play in the Ganga. Prabhupada played in the Ganga. The Ganga is, yes, it's sacred, but like a mother. Very kind, forgiving. We can play and play. I don't think she forgives us if we use shampoo. Especially when we take them on these little packets that they sell on the roadside in Mayapur, and we've seen this in the banks of the local pilgrims. Often they go there and okay, you can wash your hair. That's maybe all right, but don't leave the little plastic packet on the bank. That's really terrible. And we shouldn't throw all kinds of stuff into the Ganges. But we can play, swim, get relief. And as we're getting material relief, the freedom from disease, that with faith, I'm sure it would be a fact. But I know for a fact that there's a lot of material relief from the Ganges during the hot season of Mayapur. But more important is this water of the Ganges bathed the feet of Vishnu. But for me, even more important, it bathed Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Every day, he would bathe. This is his Abhishek water. And it's there. And his pastimes are always going on, so his relationship with the Ganges continues, and our relationship can thus continue. So those are my thoughts about Mother Ganges. If you have, we can take one or two questions, maybe if there's a question or a comment. Otherwise, maybe we can end. Do you have a question? Yes.
Thank you so much for your lecture. I think it could be, this is a comment first, but the question is related to it. First, I was just thinking it could be very well true that if you're bathing every day in the Ganges that you won't be sick, because, for example, if you're bathing already in the cold, every day you get sick much less likely.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And the other point was that when the animal is falling into the Ganges, was it that it got liberated immediately, or like the cycle?
I'm trying to remember the story. I remember, I think it was Naragopal. Sometimes they have these Ganga boat, rides, and we go up the Ganga and we listen to stories. And I remember once where someone, I think it was Naragopal, was telling this story, and I just remember, it's something to do with a I think it was a rat or something that fell into the Ganga, but I don't remember the details. You'll have to ask him or somebody. But there are these really amazing kind of. We have the Prahlad Maharaj, whose previous life somehow entered into a temple with his paramour, I think, right? It was not a wife. He was some for the purposes of whatever, and it was raining outside, so they took shelter of this, and it was a temple of Nrsimha. It was a Kadashi, so they had to, they didn't have anything to eat, so they fasted. And there was something to do with a lamp or something. I can't remember the details, but they ended up doing all these things just circumstantially, but they got all this benefit. So, anyway. So yeah, these things happen. Now, do they happen every time, everything that falls into the Ganges? I don't know. But, Hare Krishna. All right, can we end here? Thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Jagannath Subhadra Baladev. Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai. Jai Shri. Yashoda Damodar ki jai. Surik Yatra ki jai. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Vrinda Vrindavar